There is a legion that fought for the Warmaster Horus, slaughtered loyalists at the Dropsite Massacre, attacked Imperial worlds, and earned a place on the list of the 9 Traitor Legions that betrayed the Emperor. And there is a growing body of evidence that every single one of those acts was a lie. Not a lie told by the Imperium about the Legion, a lie told by the Legion about itself. The Alpha Legion are the masters of deception in a galaxy full of liars. A legion built around the principle that the perfect infiltration is one where even your own soldiers don't know the plan. So ask yourself, if you were a legion that had been shown the future by xenos seers, shown that Horus would fall, that the Emperor's victory would still doom mankind to 10,000 years of rot, and you decided the only way to serve the Emperor's deepest wish was to work from inside the enemy camp, to become the thing everyone fears, to play traitor so well that the Imperium, the Warmaster, and the dark gods themselves all bought it. How would that look from the outside? It would look exactly like treason. It would look exactly like the Alpha Legion. The deepest loyalty in the galaxy is the one willing to be remembered as betrayal. And that is the only kind the Alpha Legion has ever had. Before the case is built, something needs to be said once and clearly. Games Workshop has never officially resolved the Alpha Legion's true allegiance. Their own Warhammer community article on the 20th Legion runs under the headline, "The Alpha Legion are on your side." Or are they? Their official lore posts about the Legion are introduced as all true, entirely trustworthy, with the sarcasm doing the argumentative work. The unreliable narrator is the design. What follows is the strongest single reading of the available evidence. It isn't settled canon. It's the most coherent explanation for everything the Alpha Legion actually did. With that said, here is the forensic case. The 20th Legion was born in secrecy so complete that even the records of its creation are contradictory. Formally designated the Alpha Legion, from the ancient glyph meaning first or supreme, which in retrospect reads as either supreme irony or supreme intent. They were the last of the Legiones Astartes to be openly recognized, and the last to be officially reunited with a Primarch. The official Forge World Black Book extract on the Alpha Legion lists more than 730 recognized cognomen for a single legion: the Harrowing, the Ghost Legion, the Unbroken Chain, the Strife Wrought, the Hydra, the Combine, Aleph Null, the Left Hand of Darkness, the Azure Serpent. 730 names because one name was never safe to use consistently. Their official allegiance designation in that same document reads Traitoris Perdita, formally condemned, which is either accurate or precisely what they intended the record to say. Long before Alfarius commanded them openly, this legion operated as the Ghost Legion, a force carrying no heraldry, sometimes wearing the armor of other legions, running assassinations, abductions, and sabotage operations under clearance codes that brooked no question, as the Forge World text puts it. Local commanders who filed complaints had those complaints rebuffed or simply ignored. They disappeared from Imperial records for decades at a time. The Legio Custodes, the Officio Assassinorum, as these more recognizable agencies rose to prominence, reports of the Ghost Legion faded into myth. But they never stopped operating. They were training in the dark, building exactly the kind of web of influence and experience that no other legion could build, because no other legion was designed to. The governing principle is, we are all Alfarius. Every member of the legion, regardless of rank, regardless of whether they are the twin Primarchs or a line trooper, identifies as Alfarius when asked. The operational logic is that the enemy can't decapitate a legion where every soldier is already the commander. The psychological logic is that projecting an omnipresent, unknowable leader into enemy intelligence creates paranoia that compounds over time. But there is a third function that matters most here: the dissolution of individual identity into collective function. An Alpha Legionnaire calling themselves Alfarius is stating that their name is operationally irrelevant. Only their function matters. Apply that principle not just to a soldier, but to the Legion itself, its reputation, its historical record, its place in the memory of the heresy, and the conclusion is cold. The Legion's honor is nothing. The mission is everything. The structure enforces this. The Alpha Legion operates through cellular compartmentalization. Independent cells, each ignorant of the other's missions, each ignorant of the broader plan. Dan Abnett's Legion demonstrates it directly. Human auxiliaries and operatives given limited objectives and partial truths by design. Deliverance Lost demonstrates it again. Alpha Legion infiltrators embedded inside the Raven Guard appear genuinely unaware of how their own Primarchs think or what the full operation involves. That's not a flaw. That is the system. If you capture one cell, you get one cell. The plan survives. No single operative carries the whole architecture, and a Legion that keeps its own soldiers in the dark can keep itself in the dark, which is the one thing a galaxy-spanning deception absolutely requires. No other Legion in the heresy was built for this operation. Only one was. Around 2 years before the Horus heresy began, the exact moment is unspecified in the sources, a xenos coalition called the Cabal made contact with Alfarius and Omegon. The Cabal described themselves as a multi-species organization dedicated to the eradication of chaos, drawing from more than 1,000 intelligent races, operating since before humanity existed as a thinking species. Their primary human operative was John Grammaticus, a perpetual, functionally immortal, capable of dying and returning, and a powerful psyker who had spent a century undercover in Imperial service. The Eldar autarch Slough-Da was present. The Cabal representative Athathirtir was also in attendance. What happened there is the moral engine of everything that followed. The Cabal showed the twin Primarchs 2 futures through a device they called the Acuity, an enhanced form of psychic farsight that didn't describe the future so much as immerse the observer in it. They lived a lifetime in an instant. The first future, Horus defeats the Emperor. The remnant of Horus's original self, the last human part of him, turns inward into total self-loathing and fury, and he turns on humanity itself, exterminating it completely within 2 or 3 generations. Because the Chaos Gods had over-invested humanity as their primary vehicle, the extinction of humanity drags the Chaos powers down with it. Chaos is permanently defeated. Humanity is permanently gone. This is what the Cabal wanted. They called it a mercy, a short, sharp ending that saves the rest of the galaxy, their preferred outcome. The second future, the Emperor wins. Horus is destroyed. The Emperor is left broken, imprisoned on the Golden Throne, conscious but not living. The Imperium survives but stagnates, authoritarian, calcifying, bleeding itself across 10 to 20,000 years while chaos slowly rebuilds its grip, until eventually the galaxy is consumed anyway. Longer suffering, same ending. The Cabal's ask was explicit. Join Horus. Ensure his victory. Accept humanity's extinction so that chaos would die with us. Alfarius said no, not to Horus. He joined Horus. But his stated position, addressing the Cabal's autarch directly, was that he stood for the Emperor, loyal to him in all things, and that whatever he did from that moment on, he would do for the Emperor. Dan Abnett confirmed his intent in writing that scene. The Alpha Legion, in his design, are siding with Horus and the traitors for the good of mankind. Not for mankind's extinction, not for the Cabal's preferred ending, for mankind's good. Alfarius heard both futures and rejected them as presented. What the Acuity showed him wasn't a binary choice between extinction options. It was a map of the territory. And a legion that built 730 operational identities to avoid being pinned down on any single one does not accept a binary when a third option exists. He joined the traitor cause, completely, convincingly, with everything the Alpha Legion could bring, as a deep cover operation designed to destroy the traitor cause from within, pursuing the Emperor's deepest purpose by the only method that a legion built for layered deception could sustain. The Dropsite Massacre on Istvan-V happened in 006.M31. The 4 second-wave legions, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word-Bearers, and Alpha Legion, arrived behind Loyalist lines and turned on the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard. More than 9/10 of the Loyalist forces on the surface were lost. The Alpha Legion participated. Official lore makes no distinction between their role and the other 3 second-wave legions at the moment of betrayal. There is no canonical evidence that their targeting was restrained or their fire deliberately misdirected. Anyone who presents their participation as confirmed light-touch sabotage is going further than the text's support. But what happened immediately after the massacre is worth reading carefully. When Raven Guard Commander Bran Nev arrived to extract Korax and the surviving Loyalists from Istvan-V, the Alpha Legion helped him. Specifically, they killed the commander of a World Eater's battle barge that could have delayed the Raven Guard fleet's departure. A legion that had just fought in an ambush designed to annihilate 3 Loyalist legions turned around and neutralized a traitor asset that was threatening Loyalist survivors. That detail is in the canonical record, sourced to the novels. The Raven Guard operation that followed deepens the pattern. After Istvan-V, the Cabal directed the Alpha Legion to complete what the massacre had started: eliminate Korax, destroy the Raven Guard's ability to rebuild. Alpha Legion apothecaries grafted the faces of dead Raven Guard onto their own operatives, digesting enemy brains to acquire the memories needed for the impersonation. 50 Alpha Legion operatives eventually embedded inside Korax's legion. Omegon ran the operation personally. Korax survived. The gene seed tampering produced mutant soldiers rather than functional reinforcements. When Omegon delivered the recovered Primarch genetic data to Horus, who passed it to Fabius Bile for further research, what Bile received was, per the canonical account, incomplete at best, practically useless. The Alpha Legion kept a complete copy for themselves. He extracted the intelligence. He gave Horus the degraded version. He kept the full copy. He cut the Cabal out of his operations. That sequence isn't the behavior of an operative executing an assigned mission faithfully. It's the behavior of someone running a separate agenda underneath the assignment. John French's novel Dropsite Massacre, a Black Library release that examines the events of Istvan-V in detail, has added further texture to the Alpha Legion's role in this period. What exactly the text says versus what it implies is where interpretation lives, and the script won't overstate it. What its existence confirms is that Black Library is actively developing the nuance of Alpha Legion behavior during this era. The question remains open by authorial design.
The strongest evidence in the Loyalist case isn't inferential.
It's canonical and direct. At Kondax, Horus gave the Alpha Legion a specific mission: bring the White Scars to the traitor cause. The White Scars under Jagatai Khan were bottled up in the Kondax system by an Alpha Legion blockade. They were kept there long enough for a loyalist message to arrive. A message from Rogel Dorn, warning of Horus's treachery. That message arrived because Omegon had secretly dispatched forces to destroy an Alpha Legion-occupied pylon array that was blocking the White Scars' communications. Omegon had his own people destroy his own jamming installation so that the loyalist warning could reach Jagatai Khan. The White Scars received Dorn's message. Jagatai Khan joined the Emperor's side. A fast, mobile legion that would play a critical role in the run to Terra remained loyal to the Imperium, because Omegon ensured the message that would turn them got through. The Lexicanum entry is explicit. The Alpha Legion, or at least elements of it, made sure that Jagatai Khan would join the Emperor. Not as an accident, not as a miscalculation. Made sure. From Deliverance Lost. Alfarius had halted an operation the traitor High Command expected him to complete. When he arrived for what he understood to be a strategic briefing, only Horus, Abaddon, and Erebus were present. They were there to demand an explanation. Erebus leveled the accusation directly. The partial text from the novel. Erebus leveled the accusation with a pointed finger, pushing Alfarius's patience beyond its limit. Alfarius's response was defiance. He didn't comply. He didn't explain himself into submission. He pushed back against three of the most powerful figures in the traitor hierarchy: the Warmaster himself, his first captain, and the Word-Bearer's chief manipulator, and didn't apologize for having stopped the operation. Genuine traitors don't get summoned before their Warmaster to explain why they stopped. Genuine traitors keep executing. Alfarius stopped. Then he stood in front of Horus and didn't apologize. During the Solar War, the events of Praetorian of Dorn, Alfarius engaged Rogel Dorn personally during the assault on Pluto in 010M31. The fight was close. Alfarius dealt Dorn multiple wounds, used his speed to deny the Imperial Fist's Primarch a clean engagement, and throughout the combat, told Dorn that he wasn't there to kill him. He was there to expose his weaknesses. He told Dorn that neither of them understood what they were truly fighting for, and that he didn't fight for Horus. He fought for Dorn. Then he tried to kill him, and Dorn won, stepping inside a killing blow to trap Alfarius's weapon against his own shoulder, pinning him in place long enough to finish the fight with a chainsword. Alfarius died on Pluto. The novel's author confirmed it. The twin that Dorn killed was Alfarius. Far away, Omegon felt his brother's death. Dorn then made a decision that the loyalist reading finds worth examining. He suppressed all knowledge of the engagement. He denied Alfarius any acknowledgement or record. He said nothing. Rogel Dorn, who had just killed a traitor Primarch, which should have been a moment of Imperial triumph, buried it. There is no clean explanation in the text for why. But a Primarch who had just heard from his opponent's own mouth that his opponent was fighting for him and not against him might have reasons for wanting that conversation left out of the historical record. The Alpha Legion's doctrine resolves into one foundational principle: a deception that anyone can see through is worse than useless. The "we are all Alfarius" protocol isn't primarily about battlefield confusion. It's a statement about the relationship between identity and mission. Individual identity is operationally irrelevant. Only function matters.
Take that principle and apply it upward, past the individual, past the cell, past the Legion itself. And the conclusion is uncomfortable. The Legion's reputation, its historical record, its place in Imperial memory. These are all forms of identity. Under Alpha Legion doctrine, identity is always subordinate to mission. If the mission required the Alpha Legion to be remembered as traitors, they had to be remembered as traitors. Not some of them. Not as a cover story with threads left loose. All of them, completely, with no asterisk in the record. Because the moment there is a thread, it gets pulled. The Chaos Gods notice inconsistencies. Erebus and the Word-Bearers, who spent decades embedded in the architecture of betrayal themselves, would notice. The only cover that holds across a civil war spanning decades and hundreds of worlds is perfect cover. Perfect cover requires the covering story to be believed by everyone who enforces it, including history. Including the cells that don't know they are maintaining a cover. Including the operatives executing missions they believe are genuine betrayals, because their mission briefing doesn't include the context they are compartmentalized away from. This isn't a flaw in the Alpha Legion's design. This is the design. The cells function without understanding the whole. The whole functions without any single cell understanding it. And so the Alpha Legion goes down in history as traitors, because a deception that history doesn't believe is worse than no deception at all. The Lexicanum records that the High Lords of Terra declared the Alpha Legion wiped out 3 times, in the 31st millennium, in the 32nd, and again in the 39th. 3 times wrong. 3 times the claim was disproved by continued activity. The Imperium couldn't kill them, couldn't count them accurately, couldn't determine their allegiance. The Legion, their own battle cry, calls the Hydra, the thing that can't be killed by removing any single head, simply produced more heads. Dan Abnett added one final note that carries the weight of tragedy. Despite the rational, explicitly non-chaos nature of the Alpha Legion's choice in Legion, made from strategic calculation rather than corruption or resentment, he confirmed that the Alpha Legion eventually succumbs to chaos the same way everyone else does. They paid with their reputation. Then they paid with their souls. The cost was total. And according to the doctrine, the cost was acceptable. Because the mission was everything, and identity was nothing. Omegon put it plainly, in the address the Lexicanum attributes to him. He acknowledged the conflict in their hearts, one beating for duty, while the other bled for the Legion brothers who would be sacrificed. But this was civil war, a time of confusion and realigned loyalty. Many heads acting as one Legion with a single will. They took the long view, the longest view in the heresy, and history never knew it. Alfarius is confirmed dead, killed by Rogel Dorn on Pluto, 010.M31. Omegon felt it happen. What Omegon did next is where the story refuses to close properly. Before the siege of Terra, Omegon, operating under Alfarius's identity, delivered Horus a detailed map of the Sol System's defenses. Then the Alpha Legion defied Horus's direct orders to muster for the assault on the throne world. Instead of joining the siege, they ran operations against Robute Guilliman's advancing fleet, forcing the Ultramarines into repeated emergency interceptions, misdirecting them away from Terra, preventing the 13th Legion's arrival as loyalist reinforcement during the final battle. On the surface, this looks like traitor work. Keeping Guilliman away from Terra helped Horus. But Omegon had already withdrawn the Alpha Legion from Horus's direct command structure. He wasn't serving the Warmaster. He was pursuing an independent axis.
Post-heresy, the Alpha Legion didn't retreat into the Eye of Terror with the other traitor legions. They moved to the galactic east, following objectives of their own. The 1996 Codex Chaos recorded this plainly, in language that reads differently now than it probably did at the time. The Alpha Legion became entirely separated from the forces of Horus, but continued to wage war on all that they came across. Separated from Horus, not integrated, not subordinate, separated. The earliest canonical treatment of the post-heresy Alpha Legion already describes a legion that went its own way. The battle at Escrador, reportedly a confrontation between Omegon, operating under Alfarius's name, and Robute Guilliman, ends in one account with the Alpha Legion Primarch dead at the Ultramarines' feet. The Ultramarines took enormous casualties in the aftermath and were driven from the planet. But Omegon was a Primarch who had already demonstrated the capacity to send a double to meet Horus, while the real Alfarius ran separate operations. A legion whose operatives routinely died while their Primarchs continued on. Whether the figure Guilliman killed was Omegon himself, or whether Escrador was one more controlled exit from a war theater that had exhausted its usefulness, isn't resolved in the canonical record. Canonically, Omegon's death at Escrador is contested. His presence in the 41st millennium is unconfirmed in either direction. What can be confirmed, the Alpha Legion didn't dissolve. By the 41st millennium, the Legion had fragmented into hundreds, likely thousands, of independent war bands, each operating on its own objectives, each inheriting the cellular structure that prevents any single capture from compromising the whole. Some of those war bands run operations indistinguishable from chaos raiding, but others appear to aid Imperial forces, attack chaos war bands, and pursue ends that serve neither faction cleanly. The Lexicanum is direct about this. At least some elements of the Alpha Legion in M41 still view themselves as loyal sons of the Emperor, regarding themselves as an ongoing test of whether the Imperium servants are worthy to serve. Whether that represents authentic continuity of the original mission or 10,000 years of self-delusion dressed up as purpose is a question the 41st millennium can't answer. But the architecture remains. The cells, the compartmentalization, the function over identity, the long view. These aren't features of an organization that abandoned its founding doctrine. They are the doctrine, still operating, still producing heads when old ones are removed, still refusing to fully resolve because resolution is the one thing an operation like this can't afford. The plan, if there was one, didn't end at Istvan V. Plans designed by a legion that rejected endings don't end when the history books stop. They continue in the cells that don't know the plan, in war bands executing instructions set centuries ago, in operatives embedded in chaos and Imperium alike who are following a mission briefing nobody else has ever read. The function continues. The identity, loyal, traitor, Alfarius, Omegon, remains exactly as useful or useless as the mission requires it to be. History is written by the survivors, and the survivors of the heresy wrote the Alpha Legion onto the list of traitors and moved on. But the Alpha Legion does not care what history writes because being written down wrong was always part of the plan. They let the Imperium hate them. They let the Warmaster trust them. They let the dark gods think they'd won them. And under all of it, generation after generation, cell after cell that never knew the whole shape of the thing, they kept working toward the only outcome that mattered: humanity, surviving, past the end. The greatest loyalty in the galaxy doesn't look like loyalty. It looks like betrayal. It looks like the Alpha Legion. We are Alfarius, and we never turned.
If this is the kind of lore deep dive you want more of, subscribe. There's more where this came from.